Drakantos is a 2D free-to-play indie MMORPG that just had a closed beta recently. I put in 20 hours. I wanted to go over some criticisms that most of us have over the game, as well as the good points to it, what the progression looks like, and what we currently have in-game and how it seems the game is going to be going. If you're into indie MMORPGs, stick around by subscribing. It's all we cover on this channel. Leave me a like if you can. Normally I make videos where we just randomly jump into projects that are in development, and we just progress from one to whatever and just see what the games have to offer. If that sounds interesting to you, subscribe. We also have a Discord server, over 900 on there, indie MMORPG themed, where we share info on upcoming and developing indie MMORPGs. Well, let's start off by you're going to be picking a character. This game does advertise itself as an MMORPG, so like most of you, I expected to be able to make my own character. That is not the case. Right here are your hero options. I'll have a pop-up of all the classes that are actually in-game, that they're just not available yet, but these are what was available to us in this last test. They don't have icons for what they represent, but it's pretty evenly split amongst tanks, DPS, and support. So you'll start off by picking a character. I tried a few, you could see here. It took a while to level up. The developers had made some changes that a lot of us are happy with. For example, a lot of us were upset that this was level like 15 or something to unlock, but essentially every class becomes the class that it's going to be at this level 12. So you'll get your defense skill or your healing skill, etc. Otherwise, we mostly feel the same when we're playing the game, but the tanks do have more health and the DPS and the healers seem to do more damage. So you've picked your character. No, you cannot customize your character fully. They do have a dye system in game. You can dye certain parts of your armor and your hair, and then eventually they do have costumes. I'm sure they'll be for sale. But you've picked your character, you are this tank. Let's start off with the world. If you were expecting an open world where you're going to go grind with your friends, you're wrong. I was expecting that as well. It turns out the open world is primarily used for questing and for gathering resources for upgrading your gear. So if you're not getting experience from the open world, you will be going out and running dungeons. The only way you seem to get experience so far, what's currently in game, is by running these 3-man dungeons. And you can queue up from anywhere in the world. This is the UI for the dungeons. Oh yeah, I'm playing this on controller. It's really controller friendly. I highly recommend you play this on controller over keyboard and mouse. This is the UI for your dungeon running. You can party up with your friends. This game works off of gear score. These missions change every so often. I believe the timer is from 20 or 30 minutes, and you can just queue up immediately. There's a good variety. I didn't get too sick of any in particular after playing about 20 hours in only 2 days. It's not our traditional way of what we're expecting with MMORPGs, but this is the loot you get from whatever dungeon you choose. It does vary, and sometimes you do want to wait for new missions to refresh, but essentially you need to be wearing whatever tier of gear you're grinding in order to progress to the next tier of dungeons where you'll get more experience and more loot. Gear consists of just a hat, top, shoes, and a weapon, as well as artifacts. You can equip 2 artifacts, and it does change your playstyle. They're basically 2 skills that refresh every time you go out of the dungeons. So for example, I have this beer that makes the enemies attack each other, and then I have the wasp nest, which is just damage over time. The artifacts are a good way to feel more unique. Once you get your first tier of armor, you can progress to your second tier. Here's where it opens up a little bit more with difficulty, as well as gear and items you can get. So as far as progression goes, you want to always go for these orbs. They are another form of progression that we'll get into in a second, but the orbs are really important. And then you pretty much want to get gear, and then these artifacts are really handy. You can kind of build your playstyle how you want. You could have healing items, you could have damage items, slow items, some more defensive stuff, and then of course there are different biomes with different enemies in them. The NPCs all fight in different ways. You have some ranged guys, you have some guys that charge you, that hit you multiple times, other ones pop up from the ground. There's a good variety, and it's decently skill based. You can dodge, you could also use whatever dash skills. Some classes do have dashes. So there is some skill involved with this, but that's basically the progression of gear. Let's go back to our character menu, our abilities here. Those orbs slot into whatever skill they correspond to. They stick with your character once you use it, and you also cannot transfer your equipped gear to other characters, so choose wisely. Of course, when you're grinding though, as a higher level, you will find more equipment, and then it could sit in your inventory and you can use it on your other characters. But back to the skills, if you find those orbs, they will boost your skill, which is really important. button. So this one, I stuck it in and it allows me to hold down my attack to do more damage, which really does make a big difference. And then some of them can take a lot of orbs and make you a lot stronger or more defensive. Here's just some example artifacts. There's this one that chains them to me. I have my beehives that does damage over time, and then my beer keg, which makes them fight each other. During the test, there have been a few updates. They have made artifacts easier to find, and they have made it a bit easier to unlock your skills by making the level requirement a little bit less, and some other minor changes they have listed on their Discord. But so far, it's been pretty enjoyable. The dungeons are pretty straightforward. You have escort missions, you have exterminate the mobs, and you also have ones where you have to go and find items scattered throughout the map. To maximize your loot, your best bet is to take out all the mobs in the map. It makes a difference with the experience you gain as well as the loot that you find. If you do die during mission, you will take an experience loss from the overall amount. It ends up, I think, being like 5% per death. And then inside of the inn is the Adventurers Guild. You get these coins just by playing the missions. You can buy these tickets with those coins and kind of boost certain things that you need if you need materials or experience or loot and vanity items. And then also, as far as gear progression goes, you will want to gather materials in the open world. I'll have some pop-ups there. There are trees and mining nodes out in the open world. There's also chests you can lockpick and get stuff from there. And you can also find tickets from those chests that we just saw at the Adventurers Guild. This guy right here, he is where you go to reinforce your gear. I don't have any I can reinforce right now, but any gear you find in a dungeon, you can just use the materials that you find out in the open world to boost the gear score of those items. Gear score dictates like 99% of what you are. If you have a high gear score, you're gonna do a lot better than someone with a lower gear score, even if their character is actually higher level. The gear score is really important. I know it makes me more tanky as a tank. I have more health. I'm not sure if it gives more damage to DPS, but I imagine it does. But that's a general overview of the progression of your character in gear and what you'll be doing for most of the time you're playing, at least currently. They do have an arena, but it is not available in game yet. The store in-game is also not available, but that's what we have currently. Actually, that's basically the entirety of the playtest. I was grinding dungeons for like 15 hours, and then out in the overworld, every once in a while I go out and gather some more materials so that I can upgrade my character. I tried a few of the characters, had a lot of fun. Some issues I have with the game, the movement is a little bit, I don't know if it's delayed or if it's just that's how the animations are, but it feels kind of stiff. You can call it clunky, you can call it janky. I prefer the word stiff because I'm pretty sure they're doing this intentionally. It's grid-based, kind of how I was expecting Tibia movement to be like, and why I was comparing this to Tibia before I even played the game. But the movement just is a little bit clunky. After a short time, you do get used to it. I kind of think of this game more as a tactical little MMO rather than an MMORPG, because there is no real massive scale to this besides just seeing other people out in the open world. There's currently no trading, nothing. I've never interacted with a single person out in this open world. I'm sure you could party up with your friends and go out exploring and trying to find chests and stuff, but you legit don't get experience from the animals and the mobs out here. You just get loot from them. So I feel like I'm not making much progress when I'm out in the open world besides just mining for upgrading my gear. I feel like that whole system could be totally done away with. I don't think this open world needs to exist, but maybe they have some more plans in the future. I don't know what the developers are planning, but I basically lived in the dungeon menu. I had a lot of fun playing with my buddy. We played for like 4 hours straight, and then I played the rest of the time by myself. Not a fan of the open world questing, but I'm sure some people do. This is very retro. There's plenty of dialogue and lore, but the kind of delay with the movement is my main issue. Not that I really care about it anymore, it's just one of my criticisms. I kind of got over not being able to make a character either, not really an issue, but I think there does need to be something outside of just grinding mobs in the dungeons. I'm not sure what that could be. I feel like every real MMORPG needs some kind of minigame system to cut out the monotony from grinding and crafting, and in this game it's barely any gathering and crafting, but yet I still have the urge to continue grinding. I think I'm finally understanding the progress, how to make this a bit easier. My buddy Mojo and I kind of figured out a strategy to gain a decent solid chunk of mobs from the map and group them all up. We use our AoEs while I'm using my block skill, and we just grind it out, and it feels really satisfying. As someone who grew up on MapleStory, that's kind of the thing I want to do in MMORPGs. Not really in instances, but there's not much you can do in this, and heck, it's free to play, so not a whole lot to complain about. Is there anything I'm missing? Not really. Just don't expect the combat to be super fast. Don't expect the movement to be fast. It ends up being more tactical, and you need to time your cooldowns on your skills. At the start, you only have a couple of skills, so it feels a bit slower, but now that I have a bunch of skills, and I still have one more to unlock, it's been feeling a lot better. I think the developers may need to somehow speed it up, maybe cut down cooldowns just by a little bit, maybe cut down getting your last skill to level 10, because I'm sure they don't want people to quit super early just because they're stuck with only a couple of skills. I'm thinking the open world should be optional as well. I don't think I got anything from doing a bunch of side missions besides getting my donkey mount. I did a bunch of other side stuff and I didn't seem to get any experience or any loot, so I don't know what the point of those were. But yeah, at this point I'm just grinding. I think I'm done showing gameplay. We've seen all that we could see, so I thought I'd just do a little overview, kind of beginner's little guide tutorial, whatever. Prioritize those orbs, prioritize gear, and you'll slowly progress. Stick around by subscribing. All we do is cover indie MMORPGs on this channel. We cover a lot of niche random ones that you've probably never heard of. It's a lot of fun, and there's some pretty good quality ones that a lot of people aren't aware of. So if that sounds interesting to you, subscribe, leave me a like if you can, and we have a Discord server, indie MMORPG themed, over 900 on there. It's where we share info on upcoming indie MMORPGs and where we test them out and play together a lot of times. We're looking for more people to game with. Links for everything are in the description. I have not talked this much in one sitting for like years. Thanks for stopping by, and until next time, I will see you in game.